Thanks a lot. Yeah. Yeah. Nee. Nu wel.
Ja.
Hello.
Hey, Eugene.
How are you doing?
Are you?
Very good.
So, I just saw a few late people registering, so I want to give them 2 more minutes and then we start at 4:05. Funny. Okay, well, welcome everybody. Welcome to today's roundtable. We'll talk about innovation labs and the specific innovation lab we delivered a few weeks ago to a Dutch hospital group called Spaarne Gasthuis. Just as a quick introduction, I'm recording this session, so I hope you're all okay with that. We're using sessions. Maybe not everybody is aware of that. People that joined before are. But for the new joiners, you see on the right bottom side, you see some buttons where there's a chat where you can just leave some thoughts or reactions. There is a specific item for questions. So if there's any questions, please leave them there. I will get back to you and run some polls. There's a section on resources. That is actually the presentations that we will share today, but also some links to certain websites. And you can actually write some notes in the notes section, and that will be automatically emailed to you after the session, if you of course have an account at Sessions. Otherwise, I advise you to do your notes in your own note section. Today also here is Dorien Zwijnenberg. She is actually the head of the innovation team at Sparna Gasthuis. So she will be my, in a way, co-host for today's session. But before we go into that, I would just like to quickly open with a short introduction. Well, my name is Rode Vries, and I'm married and have two little kids that you see on this image. I live in the Netherlands, between Amsterdam and Haarlem. And actually, last year I was active for 10 years with innovation management. That started all in 2011. At the time, still at UPC, the Dutch television provider. But as from 2012, I have been implementing an innovation program and innovating with our colleagues at companies like Virgin Media, Ziggo, Telenet in Belgium, Unity Media in Germany. Also in Southern America, I saw Alet there. You're probably aware of Liberty Puerto Rico. And since 2017, I founded my own company called the Riverstone Blue, and I'm now helping other companies to, with their innovation initiatives, based on my experience mainly. And on high level, I think I do excitement services, so speaking at conferences, speaking for our management teams, for instance, enabling trainings, etc. So workshops, trainings, really to enable you or your employees to innovate. And execution could be that I execute innovation campaigns for you. Obviously, the execution and production of that innovation lab that we're discussing today, and something new. And I have to apologize directly for all the mess that you see in the background here. But I'm actually building an sort of an entrepreneurship learning toolkit for a company where they are going to get a physical box with all kinds of innovation tools that is, part of their training approach. And that is something that I'm helping various companies with nowadays. So that execution has become a very, very intense execution, actually, and more execution than just running a few campaigns. Then I would like to go to this little introduction where I want to introduce the labs, and I put Dorien in the spotlight because when we were approached, and that was, I think, end of 2011 or end of 2021, sorry, we were asked, hey, can you build an innovation lab? And well, as the title of this roundtable of today suggests, I was a little bit afraid that we would be building this sort of fancy lab that was just interesting for PR exercises. So what we really want to start off with was talk with the team and what are your goals, and that is actually, Dorien, I would like to Can you explain a little bit what your reasons were why you reached out to us in the first place to redesign your lab, but also what your goals are with having an innovation lab in the hospital?
Yeah, of course. Thank you, Roel. So I'm Doreen Zwijnenburg, lead innovation at Spaarne Labs. And Spaarne Labs is the innovation lab of Spaarne Gasthuis, the Dutch hospital Roel was referring to. And I think what sets us apart as an innovation team in a hospital is that we very much focus on social innovation. Our objective is to accelerate innovation initiatives of people working in healthcare, so the nurses and doctors. And we facilitate to strengthen their innovative capacity, the innovative capacity of man and system, where we, of course, recognize that the system is also made up of people and ever subjective to change. So we're not really about the innovation portfolio outputs and the number of innovations we put out in the hospital. Not that much tech-centered, but very much human-centered, directed at behavior and mindset of people and how they cope with change. So when we were talking about the physical space that we were working in, it was just a normal office, just blank walls and desks, as you all, I think, know. But we wanted our physical space to reflect our objectives and that, what we were trying to achieve and really help us amplify that. We didn't want a window shop of cool gadgets and robots, because that's not what we are about, but we wanted to incorporate the steps that people take, the innovation process, rather than the output. And that's where we came in touch with Roel and kind of bounced off ideas of each other. And I think we found each other on this particular point, right, Roel?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, of course, also COVID made us think differently about the office and the way we work. We all had our place set up at home to work behind our computers, and that was not really needed anymore inside the hospital. The hospital was very much more the place where we meet and we do different things than sit behind our desks behind the computer. So we wanted it to be a place where people could meet each other, and where it was instantly clear that we do things differently here. So that's kind of a bit about why we wanted to redesign our lab.
Cool. And were there any specific goals to achieve with that new lab?
Yeah, so the goals with the new lab was to get people together again. So our community of, a hospital consists of a bunch of different disciplines, and there are many silos in which people take excellent care of patients, of course, but it's difficult to find each other sometimes. And as an innovation team, we of course want to bring people together to get those creative ideas flowing. So the goal was to get multidisciplinary teams together in a space to help them open their minds for creative ideas and get them kind of away from the setting in which it was always problem solving, and not really questioning the things they do and why they do them. So that was really an important goal. And also we were thinking a lot about, we have these booklets and kind of tools to help people go from an idea to an implementation of an innovation. So what are the steps? And we wanted the place to also, the physical place to also help them achieve that, to contribute to that.
Very good. Thank you. Are there any questions maybe from the crowd here to Doreen about these goals and these ambitions that they had with an innovation lab?
I think I was very clear then.
Yeah, indeed. Well, that's very good. No questions in the question section? No, very good. If there are any follow-up questions, then please just raise your hand or just start talking. That's all fine. I would quickly like to showcase a little a use case that we created after building the lab, of course, so that you get a little bit of a taste of what we did there. And I think you should see my screen now. Here you go. So, it's part of the hospital group Spaarne Gasthuis and the lab, and we didn't come up with the name. It was already called Spaarne Labs, and Doreen is the manager of the Spaarne Labs team. So it's really like a department in the innovation department in the hospital. Well, the request, I think that Doreen already explained it really much about breaking down these silos and enabling people to innovate. And told you before, right? So this was something I felt, hey, yeah, this is something I believe in that we can actually achieve through a lab. And here a lab also has that benefit. Especially, I think, in the hospital, I really believe that many employees are obviously sort of on the bedside. That is their working space, so they don't have not even a desk to work on. So that enabling of employees to innovate was really helpful. So we started off with talking to the team, what the process was that they followed, and you will recognize it probably as experienced innovators. They followed the design thinking process, and that was also what we really tried to set up in that space. So we started with the plan, and we really looked at this drive of employees. So how can we drive employees? So we really felt, hey, if they can work autonomously there, and if they can master the design thinking process, we will and from the hospital and from senior management or from the efforts that the Spaarne Labs team is doing, they get the purpose. We would drive those employees to also work independently and to step by and visit this new lab. And we also looked, and maybe I wanted to share this a little bit as a tip, also a reading tip. But Mr. Ben Sau wrote the book Build to Innovate, and he is really about sort of how to create the environment where people can innovate in, and also how to spread the word. And he has this quote about give permission to innovate and make others jealous. And I think we discussed that with the team. That indeed sometimes their colleagues are now sort of jealous on the Spaarne Labs team because they have this fancy work environment where the others have still the boring gray hospital environment. But that should appeal to them. That should invite them. That should trigger them to step by and to spend time in that lab. So in a way, I think that sort of that jealousy in this way can also convince them to actually visit the lab and to then work there. I'll stop this, and then we started off with a design, and unfortunately, Niklas Seidsma, my partner in crime here, couldn't join today. But my skills are in innovation and innovation processes and in sort of convincing people, enabling them. But I don't have design skills, so I reached out to my friend Nikle, who came up with design, which we obviously aligned upon with the team, and started to build then. Also, that was something new for me. But the first 3 months of this year, I've been sort of like a constructor, and we actually hired different parties to make this design happen. And we will show you a little bit how that looked like. So you're actually looking at a few images now of the after the rebuild. This was all white, I think, of the entrance lobby. And the first door, and you see that on the right top side there, the first entrance door of this Spaarne Labs is actually in a hallway, a corridor with all yellow doors, and not the vibrant yellow that we've been using here, but a bit of a old yellow, I would say. And then all of a sudden there's one door that's blue and that has these yellow circles, which is actually the Spinal Lab logo. And then there's this otoscope. I'm not really sure if that's the English terminology, but that's that thing that doctors use to look in your ear. We actually made it so that people can watch through it, and then they see the hallway that you see on the other sides. And it has a wooden floor instead of the plastic floors in the rest of the hospital. We showcase also old hospital materials, really to sort of inspire people, and that they are, like Doreen said, they are entering a different world. But also to showcase them that that innovation is often a combination of existing old stuff. So we really showcased how can you utilize stuff in a different way as well. Then this was more or less how the hospital looked like. You see, you have these very cleanable floors, I would say, and white walls. And we turned this specific room into this area. So again, this was how it looked like, and it became this. We painted a lot of walls yellow. That was in line with the brand of the Spinal Labs team, but also because yellow is the color that is set to inspire you, that is making you more creative. Where blue is maybe more, is more a factual color. So we really want to add a lot of yellow there. We added wood against the walls. This is actually wood from the old floors from a Dutch circus, which you don't see anywhere in the hospital, of course. We created custom lighting here. In the back end, you see this map of the region. That's a custom-made map for Spinal Labs that is showcasing the region. As Doreen explained, it was very important to, as part of the goal of this lab, to break down silos, and not only within the hospital building that this lab is situated in, but between employees of all 3 locations. But actually, on top of that, also the collaboration with the partners in that region. So identifying collaboration within the region was a very important aspect. And this space was really meant to invite people. So it's a space where you can have a seat. There's a little bar area. You can put on some music. There are games available that you can play. And we really thought, hey, if we can provide those elements to employees, they are hopefully intrinsically motivated to go there, even if it's just to play a game. Then they're there, and then it might be a smaller step to take to also participate in the design thinking process. So here again, you see the music. We came up with some statements and turned them into sort of Spinal Labs visuals. Here you see that bar that I explained, but what is specifically here as well is that the rooms surrounding this meetup area, I would say, every room is depicting one step in the innovation process of Spinal Labs. And you see on the left, you see room 1, which is empathize in the design thinking process. Room 2 is define. And then obviously you go to ideate, prototype, and validate. And every room has their own certain elements in order to stimulate employees to execute upon that step. So there are tools available so that they can do it. But we've also thought about human behavior and try to set up the room in such a way that they are automatically in a prototyping phase or in a validation status. And I will showcase that a little bit on this slide here, where you see on the left top side this empathize room, where we created a specific empathy map for Spinal Labs with a little working space as well. If you then go down, there is the room 2, where you define the question. So there we thought, hey, after empathizing, it's very much needed to, with the whole team, come to a conclusion about that one problem that you want to fix. So that's why we did a stand-up table, so to keep people active, and a circular, a round table, so that, well, most likely people are more likely to come to one conclusion in the end. Well, then I think the most strange room in the whole hospital, on the right bottom side, we created sort of a garage. So from old medical beds, actually, we created these tables, put some equipment to the wall, provided materials, allowing employees to really prototype on their idea. So they have the ability to create a physical prototype out of their idea. Um, and well, if you talk about that behavior, we actually made cuts in the table. We actually wrote down on the table before we delivered it back to the team, because we really felt that if we deliver this, this shiny white high gloss table, nobody dares to touch it. If this table was completely perfect, probably nobody dared to touch it. Now there is already paint on. There is already writing on the table. People are more willing, and I hope that Doreen and the team is already actually seeing that that this is that this motivates them to prototype there and to leave something in a way. And then you have the final table right top side. That's the validation room. So you will interview, well, in this case, patients or other end users. And what we did, you don't really see it very clearly on the photo, but we cut off the table in a sort of an L shape. So the table forces you to sit in a way next to the one you're interviewing, instead of opposed to the one you're interviewing, because you don't want it to feel like an interrogation, right? That we're in a police jail and we're interrogated. No, we want people to give honest answers. And science shows that actually when you're seated in an L shape, the one interviewed is more likely to give a true answer. Then room 3, that's the big hall. We really try to inspire people, but also further to break down those silos. We created this little selfie post where we ask people to make a selfie and then write down for what topics people can reach out to them. So hopefully breaking down those silos. The creative brainstorm room was actually the only room without windows. So we had a hard time sort of imagining how people would actually be actively brainstorming there. Eventually, we decided to design a skyline. So they now in that brainstorm room have a custom skyline lighting set that is sort of providing some sort of feeling that you're outside. And as you see, we made it very flexible, so you can do presentations in that room, but you can also do individual brainstorms or brainstorms with 4 people. A very flexible room to support all kinds of workshops. And then finally, well, the team also felt they wanted to have a nice office to do their more operational work, and I would say, so we took this room and sort of aligned it to the branding of the rest of the lab, which is here. And this thing I wanted to showcase a bit more specifically. We really spent time on building unusual props, and that is because that actually makes people, that inspires people, that gives them more creativity, because they see, hey, that table, that's actually an old post of our hospital machinery, and now all of a sudden it became a table. And that thing on the right side you see is actually an old medicine card, and we turned that into a sort of a card for brainstorming that contains all kinds of brainstorm materials that you need to use. But we took it further. You have this post that you need if you have fluids. You turn it into a light. On the right bottom side, we turned all kinds of materials, and if you have a close eye, you see what kind of materials. What we turned all kinds of materials into vases for flowers. And we even used old scissors as little nuts to open, well, in this case, the refrigerator. Again, yes, also to just make it a fancy room. And yes, also to turn a smile on everybody's face. But again, this will push creativity. This will stimulate them to think outside the box and realize that innovation doesn't need to be something completely new to the world, but often is actually a combination of existing stuff. Well, and then it was opened by Doreen and the management team of the hospital. Few learnings, and then I will get back to the questions and also open the floor for questions. But I wanted to share a few learnings that we found by executing upon this. The first one is begin with the end in mind. Yes, you can just rebuild a room and spice it up, or put a nice color to the walls. But I would really advise you to start talking about the goals that you want to achieve with your lab. Because otherwise, chances are that it will become some sort of PR, some like a very nice lab that looks beautiful in photos, but isn't resulting in anything. When I was preparing this, I had to think back of a lab that I visited here in Amsterdam. It's of a famous photography brand, and their innovation lab is glossy white, completely glossy white. Even when I was visiting it, I almost didn't dare to touch anything because I was afraid to leave, marks of my hands or break something. And sometimes maybe that is the goal. And maybe the goal is to, invite startups or invite externals to speak. And then that might work out. But if you want employees to work on something and try stuff and also fail, you probably want something that is less fancy. Then business as usual. Whatever your goals are with your innovation lab, you probably want the visitors to think outside the box. And for that, a change of scenery is very welcome. So maybe your office already looks like this lab. Then you might want to turn it how the hospital looked like, or maybe into that very white glossy lab that I just described. But creating something that just sort of in your face showcases to people you're really in a different room now, you're really in a different world, will inspire them and will allow them to think outside of the box. And of course, use different colors, use strange materials like the wood, and again, think about unusual props. Then collaborate and validate from the start, I would say. This was in the hospital, but I'm sure also for your companies, setting up an innovation lab is an odd project and probably not something that fits into your normal day-to-day procedures. But it is something that is specific. So we started off, and it was almost by accident that we had to talk with so many departments directly from the start, but that delivered us a lot of insights. What do people miss? But also, what do we need to keep in mind here? We were in a hospital. I would always advise you to use real plants. But apparently, in a hospital, real plants are a source of potential infections. So we couldn't utilize real plants in this case. And that's just a little stupid example, maybe. But one size just doesn't fit all. You cannot just copy paste the Spinal Labs Hospital and implement it in your company and think it will do the same. Again, I'm not sure if you recognize this picture, but this is the bed that was set to fit all sleepers. but in fact, the people that want to sleep in this bed were cut to fit the bed, and that is not what you want to do. You don't want to change your goals into something that fits your lab. You want to fit the lab towards your goals. And finally, learn by doing. And you can only do that by starting to walk. And maybe some of you that have joined my roundtables before heard me say it before, innovating is like walking into the fog. As long as you stand still, as long as you stand here, you only see the 50 meters ahead. And only when you make a first step, you see the 51st meter. And only when you make that second step, you see, hey, there's actually a river, or there's actually a rock, or there's actually a bridge there. We have to change course. And I think that really works out here as well. Start building, get feedback from the people, listen into what they like, but also what they don't like. We got some negative, I would say, feedback from the cleaning department initially, because we created all kinds of stuff that were very difficult to clean. Well, my fear was that would cause them to not participate in the lab anymore. So we obviously also made some changes to suit their requirements and their demands. Well, and as I said, I didn't do this alone, so I just want to showcase Nikli here. I will share this slide afterwards. It's actually available in the resources tab in this section. But Nikli is the big designer, so you might want to know about that, about him as well. That was in a nutshell what we did for the rebuild. I just want to go back to Doreen and also open the floor. I think there were a few questions actually asked. But the first one from my side, Doreen, did you already get some feedback from your colleagues?
Yeah, we did. First of all, for my own team, the reaction is that we're very happy with this new workplace. As you said, we also incorporated our own office, and it is our job as an innovation team to kind of step off the beaten track, and this environment really adds to that. So it also helps us to, have the courage to sometimes, when everyone goes to the right, to go to the left. So that's already something I see. I think this creative environment also pushes us to be more creative. But also the visitors. It's really funny to see that there's just no denying that when you step into this room where everything is different, that it's crystal clear, like we do things here differently. And it kind of releases them of their boundaries and their like standard frame of reference, because they already expect the unexpected. So that's very nice to see in the sessions that we do. Yeah, everyone likes it a lot. I think it also has strengthened our community a lot, because it's a place that people want to be, so they come and drink their coffees. Already you can see that our kind of innovation friends throughout the hospital meet each other where they typically wouldn't meet because they're from different departments. So that's cool. And I saw a question in the chat from James, like, yes, was the staff, the medical staff, were they cynical at first? I think yes, of course you always have a group of people that is cynical, not only in the medical staff, but also other departments. And sometimes you already also hear the first phrase come out of my mouth, like, how come this works here and you can do this here and we can't? And I always ask the question, why can't you? Who says that you can? So it's also, we've always seen our own team as an experiment, but I also see the creation of this lab, as Roel already said a bit, as an experiment. So the journey, but also now that it's here, it makes people wonder, oh, if this is possible, then maybe my ideas are also possible. So that's a bit of the first things we've noticed since we are open, which is now a few weeks. Yeah.
So do you say that they they get more trust or more belief actually that their own ideas are even possible?
They get more belief. I think there's maybe there are some boundaries already inside their minds, like, you know, if they have an idea, if they want to change things up, like, oh, but that's not possible here because we are in hospital and everyone has to be, you know, very clinical. And now they can see an example of how, you know, how it can be done differently, and not only like the physical space. It's not that everyone now is going to paint their walls, but it's an example of how other ideas might also be possible if you know, take another route, maybe a route that hasn't been taken before.
Yeah, cool. And did you do something specific to take away that cynicism?
Yeah, I think we put a lot of effort in, you know, before we had the grand opening of the lab, we already did a few sessions inside the lab, just kind of a soft launch. And we also shared a lot of examples of small experiments that we did and how it helped people in the department, in the workplace. So there are some experiments that are very much focused on, you know, making the life of the nursing staff more comfortable, because we have a shortage of nurses. This is a big problem in healthcare today. And some of the experiments we did might not seem as innovative at first, but are very much focused to the problems that healthcare workers face day to day.
Yeah.
And these examples really help to see them what the value is of not only the innovation team, but specifically the process that we have and how the rooms, you know, taking those physical steps through the rooms contribute to that. So that's what we did in kind of before the big launch.
Cool.
So we had these stories ready.
I see your other question, James, on how did you get the rooms? I think, but please correct me if I'm wrong, Doreen, but I think we just took them, to be honest. This was not the first time that I've seen this happening. So I saw other innovation teams in need of an innovation lab. No, I cannot share the name. But also he wanted to have an innovation lab. He just found himself a room, took some pallets in, created a table, put some posters against the wall, and called it his innovation lab. Maybe a little bit less fancy journey than we did here. But
also I think funny story is that the room where we now designed this is a room that I don't know what the English word for kraken is, but we took the space because it wasn't being used. And to go through the entire process of getting a physical space assigned to your team is long and complex. So we thought, what if we just set up a few desks there and see what happens? And that essentially a few years later resulted in this beautiful labs.
Yeah, so you actually did that claiming also maybe already a few years ago, maybe a little bit less visible, and then took it now. Yeah, very good.
Yeah, being a bit rebellious kind of works sometimes.
Yeah. Did that answer your question, James? You may also speak. Very good. Are there other questions? Does somebody have a question? Eugene, Henk, Ulrich, you're the ones that I see, so that's why I call you out.
Yeah, if I may, Doreen, thank you very much. Very interesting presentation. I'm not going to ask you how much this project cost. Well, it's private issue, but it's obvious that it did cost some money. And obviously there are people at the hospital, some of them are cynics that know that and know the number. So it's only a matter of time that someone would ask you, okay, Darin, now you spend this amount of money. How and when will you return this money? So what would be your response? Will you be able to answer this question in which way and when?
Yeah, thank you. I think that's kind of the luxury position that our innovation team has, is that we have a board of directors that very much believes in the power of starting a movement that that can affect the mindset and behavior of people. And this is something that is very hard to measure. So there aren't like very hard KPIs. I think is I don't know if it's the same in English, but metrics, if you will, to measure this. So we have like a protected budget that we use in order to create this movement. So it's not expected of us to really have a return on investments on the innovations and the experiments that we do, which I know is kind of a luxury position because other innovation teams might have this, that they, you know, needs to get investment back. So yeah, that's kind of our position. So it's not the objective to implement innovations that also, you know, get back that money.
And are you comfortable with that? That you spend money and cannot say, well, that is what you got for this money. No, I understand, you know, of course, you know, there are some R&D costs that is kind of not recovered. And I don't know the status of your hospital, but again, the question is more like, you know, are you yourself comfortable that you spend money and not quite sure how you show the result beyond the movement? It's very difficult to measure. Again, you know, I'm not trying kind of, you know, to put you.
No, I think it's a valid, you know, it's a valid question.
About very fundamental things about innovation, especially about innovation metrics, which is one of the murkiest area, dark corner of the innovation management process. You know, I'm sure Royal would agree. That's why I'm kind of trying to figure it out.
Yeah, no, I think it's a very valid question. I myself am yes, I'm comfortable with it because you know, we do see the effects and we do have these objectives, and there are ways to measure, you know, the innovative capacity of your hospital, but it's more soft metrics. So this is something new for our organization. We are used, you know, to kind of have these hard metrics, and it is part of our journey. You know, we are now, I think the Zwaarne Labs, we founded it in 2019, and it's part of our you know, multiple year plan to set up the metrics that, you know, make it possible to really measure the impact of what we do. So and I think that's the beautiful thing of the board of directors, that they see that this also takes time to grow and to develop. So that's part of our whole project. And of course, we all, you know, we all work in healthcare because we want to make the, you know, healthcare better for the patients. And as being part of that organization, you want to know what your impact is on the quality of healthcare. So this is something that's taken into our, you know, model of growth. But this is not like more a monetary thing. It's more, you know, the soft skills of your personnel and having the knowledge that by strengthening the innovative capacity of the people, you as an organization you're better capable of adopting those innovations that eventually make the care better for patients.
Okay, thank you.
Have you ever seen sort of metrics for innovation labs, Eugene?
Well, that's a very good point. But let me kind of, you know, introduce this theme in discussion. As we know, what can be measured can be managed, right?
Yeah.
And I hate this sentence myself. Yeah, it's kind of snobbish, but it's true. The point is that there are very, very different definition of what innovation lab is. I worked with organization that use it kind of in a different sense. Innovation lab is something which is kind of, explore project, which is kind of moonshot. So the whole innovation process distributed over the units. And then innovation lab is doing this kind of moonshot projects. This is not what you're telling us. What you're telling is more kind of, incremental things. So for this one, yeah, I think that there is some lagging and leading indicators. You can easily go with satisfaction index among your nurses. If you believe that you make their life easier, kind of, set poll before you implemented this initiative, set poll after. And if you see improvement satisfaction, hey, and then let someone else calculate how much money did you save for the organization, because these nurses won't quit and you won't have to spend money to hire them again. So in a sense, everything can be measured. And I would be maybe in minority, but I would insist that must be measured. Because when we treat innovation as a movement, and I don't kind of, introduce anything negative in that, the number of critics kind of multiply faster if you treat innovation as a normal business process, as quality control, as manufacturing, as everything else. That's kind of, again, my personal opinion.
Yeah. I think Abhishek just shared in the chat that they are also measuring things on, I think, throughput. If I please correct me if I'm wrong, but how ideas flow through the innovation funnel. Wasn't really expecting to share this book today, but for those that visited Roundtable before, definitely saw this before. But if you are interested in metrics, I think this is a very interesting book to read out. It's sort of the spin-off of the Corporate Startup, which was already a very good book, and now they did a whole book about how you can measure innovation. James, I will give you the word in a bit, but two people already asked how long did you take to do this, and I think it took a little bit more than 3 months. So we started in December and spent quite a long time on identifying what are the real goals, aligning with all the different departments that I shared already. I think the real construction took about 2 months of time to get that done. And in total, it was about 220 square meters. James, I think you want to elaborate on the question you shared before.
Hello there.
Hello.
Hi. Nice to meet everybody. Thanks for a very good presentation, both of you, and discussion. I just wanted to ask, I posted a question earlier. It's just really, could you run this sort of lab within a silo or within a small department at a hospital? And the reason I asked that is that I had not the best experience of my life recently attending such a department as a patient. And I saw a lot of problems there. And I actually put in a complaint at the end, and they told me that some things have been changed, but I don't know whether I believe them. But I see an individual department could benefit a lot from this sort of approach, as well as a bigger organization, maybe.
Yeah. I'm going to give you the word, Doreen, as well, because I would like to hear your answer as well. From my perspective, I think it's possible. It's, we can physically definitely set it up. You could say, hey, we're going to follow your sort of within your silo process and support that. However, what I'm directly thinking about is that innovation is almost always multidisciplinary. And if you're then just making a lab for the people of procurement or whoever, it might not benefit as much as if you are trying to bring out together all different departments. Ulrich, thanks for being here. See you next time. Doreen, would you like to add something to that question from James?
Yeah, of course. I think it also depends on how big of an organization it is. I know some of the bigger hospitals in the Netherlands have their own innovation consultant or team within the silo. For us, I think we're a much smaller hospital, and what Roel said, the diversity that is, I think, a very important aspect of why we wanted to make it one central lab instead of on the departments. We do see that sometimes we have like teams of one silo in our lab, of course, working on something that only affects their process or is just unique for their silo. But yeah, I think the multidisciplinary aspect of it really enhances the creativity. So that's why we didn't go that way. But I'm curious as to why you think it would be more useful to put up, in one silo. So I kind of like to hear some thoughts about that from you.
I think you've got me thinking now. I think I totally see what you're saying, and I'm all in favour of the lab with the whole organisation for all the reasons that you've mentioned. But now I'm thinking, if you've got, say, one department who attends your lab who's actually got so many problems that they haven't addressed, that they can't even contemplate looking at the bigger picture, how do you reach them, or should they be reached before they even go into the lab by somebody? I don't know if it's you or somebody else. I did some work years ago in a research capacity with an organization that dealt with leaders, CEOs, etc., of various companies. And there was so much going on behind the scenes that I wasn't even aware of at the start. I'd sit in a workshop and think, oh, everybody's happy and they all get on. And then one of the other consultants would tell me, well, that person there, they're facing this difficulty at the moment, and that's why they don't see eye to eye with this person, or, and I was very new and inexperienced, so I couldn't pick up on that sort of thing. So I'm just wondering, if you bring in a department that is really trying to combat its own problems, can they really take on board the bigger innovation questions?
Yeah, so I think we kind of tackle that with the method we use. So in it's a really human-centered approach, and it also applies to the team that we're doing this with. So we always do the empathy step of the design thinking process also with this department. So we go to their department, we hang around for a day, we look at what they are doing, what they are seeing, what they're feeling. We have one-on-one interviews. We do check-ins. So there's a lot of relation building. And I think in these innovation projects, I think 80% of what makes a success is the relationship between us as an innovation team and the people that we're doing this with. So you really want to make sure that you have their trust, what's happening, and also what's not being said, because these are all obstacles that all otherwise occur later on in the process.
Yeah, I think I think that's ideal. I'm just wondering, you've got me thinking again, and then I'll stop talking because I know there's other people who want to talk. But how can you be sure that you really have their trust and that they're telling you the truth? And vice versa, maybe. How can they be sure that they can trust you or your lab?
Yeah, you can't never be 100% sure. I think it's a learning process, and I also work together with a team that in the end had another objective which I was not aware of, and these projects tend to fail. Yeah, you know, which is what we do a lot. We fail a lot because we are an innovation team, and we always try new things. So you can never be sure. You can, you know, build trust by really being open, by setting the example. We try to set an example of the behavior we want to see by doing that and displaying it ourselves. I think that's a nice way, and it really helps if you have a few examples of success. So maybe some of their colleagues already did a project with us, and we let them talk to each other, because you always see that, you know, nurses talk to nurses, doctors talk to doctors, and they tend to believe each other more than they believe me. I am, you know, outside of the clinical process. So that also helps to connect the people and let them share their experience. And I never, you know, end the project by myself explaining or presenting it, but I always let them do it, let them shine, and let them be the example.
Excellent. Yeah, that sounds brilliant. Thanks so much. Thank you.
So I'm sorry that I have to stop the discussion for now, but we are at 5, so I think you will probably have to go to next meetings maybe. If there are any remaining questions, please send them to me. I'm still in contact with Doreen, so then I can always reach out to Doreen and share the answers back to you. Like I said, all the materials are available already now in that tab with materials, but I will share with everybody a link to a site where you can view the recording and find some of the materials that we discussed. So that will be a follow-up. And maybe as a quick announcement, I already talked about the box that I'm creating. Next roundtable, again, last Tuesday of the month, so June 28th in this case. We're going to talk about what we call TAILT, Tailored Entrepreneurship Learning Toolbox. This is our way of helping companies to set up training programs for their staff. And we do that in a very, very tailored way so that everybody gets their own sort of their own training approach. Already in the resources section, there's a link to subscribe, but I will also follow up with that link. And then finally, of course, I wanted to share my details. If you want to have a chat about something more specific here about the lab or whatever, then reach out to me, please. You can also go to my website and directly book that chat. That was it for today. Thanks so much for attending today. Again, I will follow up with a sort of a link to a site with all the materials so that you can review. And specific thanks, of course, to Doreen for joining today and sharing your experiences with all the guests today.
Thanks, Roel.
Thanks. I think we're gonna have a final chat topic, but otherwise, everybody have a good day. Thanks for being here, and I hope to see you next month.
See ya. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.